The Night of the Iguana by Tennessee Williams. And so, as kinsmen met a night, we talked between the rooms until the moss had reached our lips and covered up our names. Emily Dickinson. The play takes place in the summer of 1940 in a rather rustic and very bohemian hotel, the Costa Verde, which, as its name implies, sits on a jungle-covered hilltop overlooking the Caleta, or Morning Beach, of Puerto Barrio in Mexico. But this is decidedly not the Puerto Barrio of today. At that time, 20 years ago, the west coast of Mexico had not yet become the Las Vegas and Miami Beach of Mexico. The villages were still predominantly primitive Indian villages, and the Stillwater Morning Beach of Puerto Barrio and the rainforests above it were among the world's wildest and loveliest populated places. The setting for the play is the wide veranda of the hotel. This roofed veranda, enclosed by a railing, runs around all four sides of a somewhat dilapidated tropical-style frame structure. But on the stage, we only see the front and one side. Below the veranda, which is slightly raised above the stage level, are shrubs with vivid trumpet-shaped flowers and a few cactus plants, while at the sides we see the foliage of the encroaching jungle. A tall coconut palm slants upward at one side, its trunk notched for a climber to chop down coconuts for rum cocos. In the back wall of the veranda are the doors of a line of small cubicle bedrooms, which are screened with mosquito net curtains. For the night scenes, they are lighted from within, so that each cubicle appears as a little interior stage, the curtains giving a misty effect to their dim inside lighting. A path which goes down through the rainforest to the highway and the beach, its opening masked by foliage, leads off from one side of the veranda. A canvas hammock is strung from posts on the veranda, and there are a few old wicker rockers and rattan lounging chairs at one side. Act 1. As the curtain rises, there are sounds of a party of excited female tourists arriving by bus on the road down the hill below the Costa Verde Hotel. Mrs. Maxine Falk, the proprietor of the hotel, comes around the turn of the veranda. She is a stout, swarthy woman in her middle 40s, affable and rapaciously lusty. She is wearing a pair of Levi's and a blouse that is half unbuttoned. She is followed by Pedro, a Mexican of about 20, slim and attractive. He is an employee in the hotel and also her casual lover. Pedro is stuffing his shirt under the belt of his pants and sweating as if he had been working hard in the sun. Mrs. Falk looks down the hill and is pleased by the sight of someone coming up from the tourist bus below. Maxine, calling out, "Shannon!" A man's voice from below answers, "Hi, ha." Maxine always laughs with a single harsh, loud bark, opening her mouth like a seal expecting a fish to be thrown to it. "My spies told me that you were back under the border." To Pedro, "Anda, hombre, anda." Maxine's delight expands and vibrates in her as Shannon labors up the hill to the hotel. He does not appear on the jungle path for a minute or two after the shouting between them starts. Maxine, "Ha! My spies told me you went through Saltillo last week with a busload of women. A whole busload of females. All females. Ha! How many you laid so far?" Shannon, from below, panting, "Great Caesar's ghost. Stop shouting." Maxine, "No wonder your ass is dragging. Ha!" Shannon, "Tell the kid to help me with this bag." Maxine shouting directions. Pedro, anda la maleta. Pancho no sees flojo. Va y trae el equipaje del señor. Pancho, another young Mexican, comes around the veranda and trots down the jungle path. Pedro has climbed up a coconut tree with a machete and is chopping down nuts for rum cocos. Shannon, shouting below. Fred? Hey, Fred. Maxine, with a momentary gravity. Fred can't hear you, Shannon. She goes over and picks up a coconut, shaking it against her car to see if it has milk in it. Shannon, still below. Where's Fred? Gone fishing? Maxine lops the end off a coconut with the machete as Pancho trots up to the veranda with Shannon's bag. A beat-up Gladstone covered with travel stickers from all over the world. Then Shannon appears in a crumpled white linen suit. He is panting, sweating, and wild-eyed. About 35, Shannon is Black Irish. His nervous state is terribly apparent. He is a young man who has cracked up before and is going to crack up again, perhaps repeatedly. Maxine. Well, let me look at you. Shannon. Don't look at me. Get dressed. Maxine. Gee, you look like you had it. Shannon. You like you've been having it too. Get dressed. Maxine. Hell, I'm dressed. I never dress in September. Don't you know I never dress in September? Shannon. Well, just button your shirt up. Maxine. How long you been off it, Shannon? Shannon. Off what? Maxine. The wagon. Shannon. Hell, I'm dizzy with fever. 103 this morning in Cuernavaca. Shannon. Maxine. What you got wrong with you? Shannon. Fever. Fever. Where's Fred? Maxine. Dead. Shannon. Did you say dead? Maxine. That's what I said. Fred is dead. Shannon. How? Maxine. Less than 2 weeks ago, Fred cut his hand on a fish hook. It got infected. Infection got in his bloodstream, and he was dead inside of 48 hours. De Pancho. Vete. Shannon. Holy smoke. Maxine. I can't quite realize it yet. Shannon. You don't seem inconsolable about it. Maxine. Fred was an old man, baby. 10 years older than me, and we hadn't had sex together, and... Shannon. What's that got to do with it? Maxine. Lie down and have a rum cocoa. Shannon. No. I want a cold beer. If I start drinking rum cocos now, I won't stop drinking rum cocos. So Fred is dead? I looked forward to lying in this hammock and talking to Fred. Maxine. Well, Fred's not talking now, Shannon. A diabetic gets a blood infection. He goes like that without a decent hospital in less than a week. A bus horn is heard blowing from below. Why don't your busload of women come on up here? They're blowing the bus horn down there. Shannon. Let him blow it. Blow it. He sways a little. I got a fever. He goes to the top of the path, divides the flowering bushes, and shouts down the hill to the bus. Hank, get them out of the bus and bring them up here. Tell them the rates are okay. Tell them His voice gives out, and he stumbles back to the veranda where he sinks down onto the low steps, panting. Absolutely the worst party I've ever been out with in 10 years of conducting tours. For God's sake, help me with them because I can't go on. I gotta rest here a while. She gives him a cold beer. Thanks. Look and see if they're getting out of the bus. She crosses to the masking foliage and separates it to look down the hill. Are they bus or are they staying in it? The stingy daughters of bitches. School teachers at a Baptist female college in Blowing Rock, Texas. 11 of them. Maxine. A football squad of old maids. Shannon. Yeah, and I'm the football. Are they out, are they out of the bus? Maxine. One's gotten out. She's going into the bushes. Shannon. Well, I've got the ignition key to the bus in my pocket. This pocket. So they can't continue without me unless they walk. Maxine. They're still blowing that horn. Shannon. Fantastic. I can't lose this party. Blake Torres has put me on probation because I had a bad party last month that tried to get me sacked, and I am now on probation with Blake Torres. If I lose this party, I'll be sacked for sure. Oh my god, are they still all in the bus? He heaves himself off the steps and staggers back to the path, dividing the foliage to look down it, then shouts, Hank, get them out of the buses. Bring them up here. Hank's voice. From below. They want to go back in town. Shannon. They can't go back in town. 5 years ago this summer, I was conducting round-the-world tours for cooks, exclusive groups of retired Wall Street financiers. We traveled in fleets of Pierce Arrows and Hispano Suezas. Are they getting out of the bus? Maxine. You're going to pieces, are you? Shannon. No. Gone. Gone. He rises and shouts down the hill again. Hey, come up here. Come on up here a minute. I want to talk to you about this situation. Incredible. Fantastic. He drops back on the steps, his head falling into his hands. Maxine. They're not getting out of the bus. Shannon, you're not in a nervous condition to cope with this party. Shannon, so let them go and you stay. Shannon. You know my situation. I lose this job, what's next? There's nothing lower than Blake Torres, Maxine, honey. Are they getting out of the bus? Are they getting out of it now? Maxine. Man's coming up the hill. Shannon. Oh, Hank, you gotta help me with him. Maxine. I'll give him a rum cocoa. Hank comes grinning onto the veranda. Hank. Shannon, them ladies are not gonna come up here, so you better come on back to the bus. Shannon. Fantastic. I'm not going down to the bus, and I've got the ignition key to the bus in my pocket. It's going to stay in my pocket for the next 3 days. Hank. You can't get away with that, Shannon. Hell, they'll walk back to town if you don't give up the bus key. Shannon. They drop like flies from sunstrokes on that road. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Panting and sweating, he drops a hand on Hank's shoulder. Hank, I want your cooperation. Can I have it? Besides, when you're out with a difficult party like this, the tour conductor, me, and the guide, you, have got to stick together to control the situations as they come up against us. It's a test of strength between two men, in this case, and a busload of old wet hens. You know that, don't you? Hank. Well, he chuckles. There's this kid that's crying on the back seat all the time, and that's what's rucked up the deal. Hell, I don't know if you did or you didn't, but they all think that you did because the kid keeps crying. Shannon. Hank, look. I don't care what they think. A tour conducted by T. Lawrence Shannon is in his charge, completely. Where to go, when to go, every detail of it. Otherwise, I resign. So go on back down there and get them out of that bus before they suffocate in it. Haul them out by force if necessary and herd them up here. Hear me? Don't give me any argument about it. Miss Falk, honey, give him a menu. Give him one of your sample menus to show the ladies. She's got a Chinaman cook here. You won't believe the menu. The cook's from Shanghai. Handled the kitchen at an exclusive club here. I got him here for her, and he's a bug. A fanatic about continental cuisine. Can even make beef stroganoff and thermidor dishes. Mrs. Falk, honey, hand him one of those fantastic sample menus. Maxine chuckles as if perpetrating a practical joke as she hands him a sheet of paper. Thanks. Now, here, go on back down there and show them this fantastic menu. Describe the view from the hill, and Hank accepts the menu with a chuckling shake of the head. And have a cold carta blanca, and Hank, you better go down with me. Shannon, I can't leave this veranda for at least 48 hours. What in blazes is this? A little animated cartoon by Hieronymus Bosch? The German family, which is staying at the hotel, the Fahrenkopfs, their daughter and son-in-law suddenly make a startling dreamlike entrance upon the scene. They troop around the veranda, then turn down into the jungle path. They are all dressed in the minimal concession to decency, and all are pink and gold like Baroque cupids in various sizes. Rubenesque, splendidly physical. The bride, Hilda, walks astride a big inflated rubber horse which has an ecstatic smile and great winking eyes. She shouts, "Horsey, horsey, giddy up," as she waddles astride it, followed by her Wagnerian tenor bridegroom Wolfgang and her father, Herr Fahrenkopf, a tank manufacturer from Frankfurt. He is carrying a portable radio which is tuned in to the crackle and guttural voices of a German broadcast, reporting the Battle of Britain. Frau Fahrenkopf, bursting with rich, healthy fat and carrying a basket of food for a picnic at the beach, brings up the rear. They begin to sing a Nazi marching song. Shannon. Ah, Nazis. How come there's so many of them down here lately? Maxine. Mexico's the front door to South America and the back door to the States. That's why. Shannon. And you're setting yourself up here as a receptionist at both doors now that Fred's dead? Maxine comes over and sits down on him in the hammock. Get off my pelvis before you crack it. If you want to crack something, crack some ice from my forehead. She removes a chunk of ice from her glass and massages his forehead with it. Oh, God. Maxine, chuckling. So you took the young chick and the old hen, and the old hens were squawking about it, Shannon. Shannon. The kid asked for it. No kidding. But she's 17. A month less than 17. So it's serious. It's very serious. Because the kid is not just emotionally precocious. She's a musical prodigy, too. Maxine. What's that got to do with it? Shannon. Here's what it's got to do with it. She's traveling under the wing, the military escort of this butch vocal teacher who organizes little community sings in the bus. Oh, God. I'm surprised they're not singing now. They must have already suffocated. Or they'd be singing some morale-boosting number like She's a Jolly Good Fellow, or Pop Goes the Weasel. Oh, God. Maxine chuckles up and down the scale. And each night after supper, after the complaints about the supper and the checkup on the checks by the math instructor, and the vomiting of the supper by several ladies who have inspected the kitchen, then the canary, will give a vocal recital. She opens her mouth and out flies Carrie Jacobs Bond or Ethelbert Nevin. I mean, after a day of one indescribable torment after another, such as 3 blowouts and a leaking radiator in Tierra Caliente, he sits up slowly in the hammock as these recollections gather force. And an evening climb up Sierras through torrents of rain around hairpin turns over gorges and chasms measureless to man, and with a thermos jug under the driver's seat which the Baptist college ladies think is filled with ice water, but which I know is filled with iced tequila. I mean, after such a day has finally come to a close, the musical prodigy Miss Charlotte Goodall, right after supper, before there's a chance to escape, will give a heartbreaking and ear-splitting rendition of Carrie Jacobs Bond's End of a Perfect Day, with absolutely no humor. Maxine. Ha. Shannon. Yeah, ha. Last night, no. Night before last, the bus burned out its brake linings in Chilipachango. This town has a hotel. This hotel has a piano, which hasn't been tuned since they shot Maximilian. The Texas songbird opens her mouth and out flies, I love you truly. And it flies straight at me with gestures, all right at me, till her chaperone, this diesel driven vocal instructor of hers, slams the piano lid down and hauls her out of the mess hall. But as she's hauled out, Miss Bird Girl opens her mouth and out flies, Larry, Larry, I love you. I love you truly. That night, when I went to my room, I found that I had a roommate. Maxine, the musical prodigy has moved in with you? Shannon, the spook had moved in with me. In that hot room with one bed, the width of an ironing board and about as hard, Spook was up there on it, sweating, stinking, grinning up at me. Ah, this. She chuckles. So you've got the guy with you again. Shannon, that's right. He's the only passenger that got off the bus with me, honey. Maxine, is he here now? Shannon, not far. Maxine, on the veranda? Shannon, he might be on the other side of the veranda. Oh, he's around here somewhere, but he's like the Sioux Indians in the Wild West fiction. He doesn't attack before sundown, he's an after sundown shadow. Shannon wriggles out of the hammock as the bus horn gives one last long, protesting blast. Maxine, I have a little shadow that goes in and out with me, and what can be the use of him is more than I can see. He's very, very like me, from his heels up to his head, and he always hops before me when I hop into my bed. Shannon, that's the truth. He sure hops in the bed with me. Maxine, when you're sleeping alone, or... Shannon, I haven't slept in 3 nights. Maxine, oh, you will tonight, baby. The bus horn sounds again. Shannon rises and squints down the hill at the bus. Shannon, how long does it take to sweat the faculty of a Baptist female college out of a bus that's parked in the sun when it's 100 degrees in the shade? Maxine, they're staggering out of it now. Shannon, yeah, I've won this round, I reckon. What are they doing down there, can you see? Maxine, they're crowding around your pal Hank. Shannon, tearing him to pieces? Maxine, one of them slapped him. He's ducked back into the bus, and she is starting up here. Shannon, oh, great Caesar's ghost, it's the butch vocal teacher. Miss Fellows, in a strident voice from below. Shannon, 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 for God's sake, help me with her. Maxine, you know I'll help you, baby, but why don't you lay off the young ones and cultivate an interest in normal grown-up women? Miss Fellows, her voice coming nearer. Shannon! Shannon, shouting down the hill. Come on up, Miss Fellows, everything's fixed. To Maxine. Oh, God. Here she comes charging up the hill like a bull elephant on a rampage. Fellows thrashes through the foliage at the top of the jungle path. Shannon, Miss Fellows never do that. Not at high noon in a tropical country in summer. Never charge up a hill like you were leading a troop of cavalry attacking an almost impregnable... Mrs. Fellows, panting and furious. I don't want advice or instructions. I want the bus key. Shannon, Mrs. Falk, this is Mrs. Judith Fellows. Mrs. Fellows, is this man making a deal with you? Maxine, yeah, I don't know what you... Mrs. Fellows, is this man getting a kickback out of you? Maxine, nobody gets any kickback out of me. I turn away more people than... Mrs. Fellows, cutting in. This isn't the Ambos Mundos. It says in the brochure that in the Puerto Barrio we stay at the Ambos Mundos in the heart of the city. Shannon, yes, on the plaza. Tell her all about the plaza. Maxine, what about the plaza? Shannon, it's hot, Noisy, stinking, swarming with flies. Pariah dogs dying in the Miss Fellows. How is this place better? Shannon. The view from this veranda is equal and I think better than the view from the Victoria Peak in Hong Kong. The view from the roof terrace of the Sultan's Palace in Miss Fellows cutting in. I want the view of a clean bed, a bathroom with plumbing that works, and food that is eatable and digestible and not contaminated by filthy. Shannon. Miss Fellows, take your hand off my arm. Shannon. Look at this sample menu. The cook is a Chinese imported from Shanghai by me. Sent here by me. Year before last in 1938. He was the chef at the Royal Colonial Club and Miss Fellows cutting in. You got a telephone here? Maxine. Sure, in the office. Miss Fellows. I want to use it. I'll call collect. Where's the office? Maxine de Pancho. Y voilà el telefono. With Pancho showing her the way, Miss Fellows stalks off around the veranda to the office. Shannon falls back, sighing desperately against the veranda wall. Maxine. Ha. Shannon. Why did you have to... Maxine. Huh? Shannon. Come out looking like this. For you, it's funny, but for me, it's... Maxine. This is how I look. What's wrong with how I look? Shannon. I told you to button your shirt. Are you so proud of your boobs that you won't button your shirt up? Go in the office and see if she's calling Blake Torres to get me fired. Maxine. She better not unless she pays for the call. She goes around the turn of the veranda. Miss Hannah Jelks appears below the veranda steps and stops short as Shannon turns to the wall, pounding his fist against it with a sobbing sound in his throat. Hannah. Excuse me. Shannon looks down at her dazed. Hannah is remarkable looking, ethereal, almost ghostly. She suggests a Gothic cathedral image of a medieval saint, but animated. She could be 30. She could be 40. She is totally feminine and yet androgynous looking, almost timeless. She is wearing a cotton print dress and has a bag slung on a strap over her shoulder. Hannah. Is this the Costa Verde Hotel? Shannon, suddenly pacified by her appearance. Yes, it is. Hannah. You're not the hotel manager, are you? Shannon. No, she'll be right back. Hannah. Thank you. Do you have any idea if they have 2 vacancies here? One for myself and one for my grandfather, who's waiting in a taxi down there on the road? I didn't want to bring him up the hill till I'd made sure they have rooms for us first. Shannon. Well, there's plenty of room here out of season, like now. Hannah. Good. Wonderful. I'll get him out of the taxi. Shannon. Need any help? Hannah. No, thank you. We'll make it all right. She gives him a pleasant nod and goes back off down the path through the rainforest. A coconut plops to the ground. A parrot screams at a distance. Shannon drops into the hammock and stretches out. Then Maxine reappears. Shannon. How about the call? Did she make a phone call? Maxine. She called a judge in Texas. Blowing Rock, Texas. Collect. Shannon. She's trying to get me fired, and she is also trying to pin me on She's trying to pin on me a rape charge, a charge of statutory rape. Maxine. What's statutory rape? I've never known what that was. Shannon. That's when a man is seduced by a girl under 20. She chuckles. It's not funny, Maxine, honey. Maxine. Why do you want the young ones, or think that you do? Shannon. I don't want any, regardless of age. Maxine. Then why do you take them, Shannon? He swallows but does not answer. Huh, Shannon? Shannon. People need human contact, Maxine, honey. Maxine. What size shoe do you wear? Shannon. I don't get the point of that question. Maxine. These shoes are shot, and if I remember correctly, you travel with only one pair. Fred's estate included one good pair of shoes, and your feet look about his size. Shannon. I loved old Fred, but I don't want to fill his shoes, honey. She has removed Shannon's beat-up English-made Oxfords. Maxine. Your socks are shot. Fred's socks would fit you too, Shannon. She opens his collar. Ah, I see you got on your gold cross. That's a bad sign. It means you're thinking again about going back to the church. Shannon. This is my last tour, Maxine. I wrote my old bishop this morning a complete confession and a complete capitulation. She takes a letter from his damp shirt pocket. Maxine. If this is the letter, baby, you've sweated through it, so the old bugger couldn't read it even if you mailed it to him this time. She has started around the veranda and goes off as Hank reappears up the hill path, mopping his face. Shannon's relaxed position in the hammock aggravates Hank sorely. Hank, will you get your ass out of that hammock? Shannon, no, I will not. Hank, Shannon, get out of that hammock. He kicks at Shannon's hips in the hammock. Shannon, Hank, if you can't function under rough circumstances, you are in the wrong racket, man. I gave you instructions, but the instructions were simple. I said get them out of the bus, and Maxine comes back with a kettle of water, a towel, and other shaving equipment. Hank, out of the hammock, Shannon. He kicks Shannon again, harder. Shannon, warningly. That's enough, Hank. A little familiarity goes a long way, but not as far as you're going. Maxine starts lathering his face. What's this? What are you... Maxine, haven't you ever heard of a shave and a haircut by a lady barber? Hank, the kid has gone into hysterics. Maxine, hold still, Shannon. Shannon, Hank, hysterics is a natural phenomenon, the common denominator of the female nature. It's the big female weapon, and the test of a man is his ability to cope with it. And I can't believe he can't. If I believed that you couldn't, I would not be able to. Maxine, hold still. Shannon, I'm holding still. To Hank. No, I wouldn't be able to take you out with me again, so go on back down there and... Hank, you want me to go back down there and tell them you're getting a shave up here in a hammock? Maxine, tell them that Reverend Larry is going back to church so they can go back to the female college in Texas. Hank, I want another beer. Maxine, help yourself, Piggly Wiggly. The cooler's in my office right around there. She points around the corner of the veranda. Shannon, as Hank goes off. It's horrible how you gotta bluff and keep bluffing even when hollering help is all you're up to, Maxine. You cut me. Maxine, you don't hold still. Shannon, just trim the beard a little. Maxine, I know. Baby, tonight we'll go night swimming, whether it storms or not. Shannon, oh God. Maxine, the Mexican kids are wonderful night swimmers. When I found them, they were taking the 200-foot dives off the Quebrada, but the Quebrada Hotel kicked them out for being over-attentive to the lady guests there. That's how I got a hold of them. Shannon, Maxine, you're bigger than life and twice as unnatural, honey. Maxine, no one's bigger than life-size, Shannon, or even ever that big, except maybe Fred. She shouts, Fred, and gets a faint answering echo from an adjoining hill. Little Sir Echo is all that answers for him now, Shannon, but she pats some bay rum on his face. Dear old Fred was always a mystery to me. He was so patient and tolerant with me that it was insulting to me. A man and a woman have got to challenge each other. You know what I mean? I hired those diving boys from the Quebrada 6 months before Fred died. And did he care? Did he give a damn when I started night swimming with them? No. He'd go night fishing. All night. And when I got up the next day, he'd be preparing to go out fishing again. But he just caught the fish and threw them back into the sea. Hank returns and sits drinking his beer on the steps. Shannon. The mystery of old Fred was simple. He was just cool and decent. That's all the mystery of him. Get your pair of night swimmers to grab my ladies' luggage out of the bus before the vocal teacher gets off the phone and stops him. Maxine, shouting. Pedro, Pancho, muchachos. Trae las maletas el anejo, pronto. The Mexican boys start down the path. Maxine sits in the hammock beside Shannon. You all put in Fred's old room next to me. Shannon. You want me in his socks and his shoes and his room next to you? He stares at her with a shocked surmise of her intentions toward him, then flops back down in the hammock with an incredulous laugh. Oh no, honey. I've just been hanging on till I could get in this hammock on this veranda over the rainforest and the Stillwater Beach. That's all that can pull me through this last tour in a condition to go back to my original vocation. Maxine. Ha. You still have some rational moments when you face the fact that churchgoers don't go to church to hear atheistical sermons. Shannon. God damn it. I never preached an atheistical sermon in a church in my life, and Miss Fellows has charged out of the office and rounds the veranda to bear down on Shannon and Maxine, who jumps up out of the hammock. Miss Fellows. I've completed my call, which I may collect to Texas. Maxine shrugs, going by her around the veranda. Miss Fellows runs across the veranda. Shannon, sitting up in the hammock. Excuse me, Miss Fellows, for not getting out of this hammock, but Miss Fellows, please sit down a minute. I want to confess something to you. Miss Fellows. That ought to be interesting. What? Shannon. Just that, well, like everyone else at some point or other in life, my life has cracked up on me. Miss Fellows. How does that compensate us? Shannon. I don't think I know what you mean by compensate, Miss Fellows. He props himself up and gazes at her with the gentlest bewilderment, calculated to melt the heart of a stone. I mean, I've just confessed to you that I'm at the end of my rope. And you say, how does that compensate us? Please, Miss Fellows, don't make me feel that any adult human being puts personal compensation before the dreadful, bare fact of a man at the end of his rope who still has to try to go on, to continue, as if he'd never been better or stronger in his whole existence. No, don't do that. It would... Miss Fellows, it would what? Shannon, shake, if not shatter, everything left of my faith in essential human goodness. Maxine, returning with a pair of socks. Ha! Miss Fellows, can you sit there? I mean, lie there. Yeah, I mean, lie there and talk to me about... Maxine, ha! Miss Fellows, essential human goodness? Why just plain human decency is beyond your imagination, Shannon. So lie there. Lie there and lie there. We're going. Shannon, rising from the hammock. Miss Fellows, I thought I was conducting this party, not you. Miss Fellows. You? You just now admitted you're incompetent, as well as Maxine. Ha! Shannon. Maxine, will you... Miss Fellows, cutting in with cold, righteous fury. Shannon, we girls have worked and slaved all year at Baptist Female College for this Mexican tour, and the tour is a cheat. Shannon, to himself. Fantastic. Miss Fellows. Yes, cheat. You haven't stuck to the schedule, and you haven't stuck to the itinerary advertised in the brochure, which Blake Tours put out. Now, either Blake Tours is cheating us, or you're cheating Blake Tours, and I'm putting wheels in motion. I don't care what it costs me. I'm... Shannon. Oh, Miss Fellows. Isn't it just as plain to you as it is to me that your hysterical insults, which are not at all easy for any born and bred gentleman to accept, are not motivated, provoked by anything as trivial as the, the motivations that you're ascribing them to? Now, can't we talk about the real, true cause of Miss Fellows? Cause of what? Charlotte Goodall appears at the top of the hill. Shannon. Cause of your rage, Miss Fellows. Your Miss Fellows. Charlotte, stay down the hill in the bus. Charlotte. Judy, there. Miss Fellows. Obey me. Down. Charlotte retreats from view like a well-trained dog. Miss Fellows charges back to Shannon, who has gotten out of the hammock. He places a conciliatory hand on her arm. Miss Fellows. Take your hand off my arm. Maxine. Ha. Shannon. Fantastic. Miss Fellows, please. No more shouting? Please? Now, I really must ask you to let this party of ladies come up here and judge the accommodations for themselves and compare them with what they saw passing through town. Miss Fellows, there is such a thing as charm and beauty in some places, as much as there's nothing but dull, ugly imitation of highway motels and tech. Miss Fellows charges over to the path to see if Charlotte has obeyed her. Shannon follows, still propitiatory. Maxine says, "Ha," but she gives him an affectionate little pat as he goes by her. He pushes her hand away as he continues his appeal to Miss Fellows. Miss Fellows. I've taken a look at those rooms, and they'd make a room at the Y look like a suite at the Ritz. Shannon. Miss Fellows, I am employed by Blake Tours, and so I'm not in a position to tell you, quite frankly, what mistakes they've made in their advertising brochure. They just don't know Mexico. I do. I know it as well as I know 5 out of all 6 continents on the... Miss Fellows. Continent? Mexico? You've never even studied geography if you... Shannon. My degree from Sewanee is Doctor of Divinity. But for the past 10 years, geography's been my specialty, Mrs. Fellows, honey. Name any tourist agency I haven't worked for. You couldn't. I'm only now with Blake Tours because I... Miss Fellows. Because you what? Couldn't keep your hands off innocent underage girls and your... Shannon. Now, Miss Fellows? He touches her arm again. Mrs. Fellows. Take your hand off my arm. Shannon. For days, I've known you were furious and unhappy, but... Mrs. Fellows. Oh, you think it's just me that's unhappy? Hauled in that stifling bus over the byways, off the highways, shook up and bumped up so you could get your rake off? Is that what you... Shannon. What I know is, all I know is, that you are the leader of the insurrection. Miss Fellows. All of the girls in this party have dysentery. Shannon. That you can't hold me to blame for. Miss Fellows. I do hold you to blame for it. Shannon. Before we entered Mexico, at New Laredo, Texas, I called you ladies together in the depot on the Texas side of the border, and I passed out mimeographed sheets of instructions on what to eat and what not to eat, what to drink, what not to drink in the... Miss Fellows. It's not what we ate, but where we ate that gave us dysentery. Shannon, shaking his head like a metronome. It is not dysentery. Miss Fellows. The result of eating in places that would be condemned by the Board of Health and... Shannon. Now wait a minute. Miss Fellows. We're disregarding all rules of sanitation. Shannon. It is not dysentery. It is not amoebic. It's nothing at all, but... Maxine. Montezuma's Revenge. That's what we call it. Shannon. I even passed out pills. I passed out bottles of enterovioform, because I knew that some of you ladies would rather be victims of Montezuma's Revenge than spend 5 centavos on bottled water in stations. Miss Fellows. You sold those pills at a profit of 50 cents per bottle. Maxine. She knocks off the end of a coconut with a machete, preparing a rum cocoa. Shannon. Now, fun is fun, Miss Fellows, but an accusation like that. Miss Fellows. I priced them in the pharmacies because I suspected that. Shannon. Miss Fellows, I am a gentleman. And as a gentleman, I can't be insulted like this. I mean, I can't accept insults of that kind, even from a member of a tour that I am conducting. And Miss Fellows, I think you might try to remember that you're speaking to an ordained minister of the church. Miss Fellows, defrocked, but still trying to pass himself off as a minister. Maxine, how about a rum cocoa? We give a complimentary rum cocoa to all our guests here. Her offer is apparently unheard. She shrugs and drinks the rum cocoa herself. Shannon, Miss Fellows, in every party there is always one individual that's discontented, that is not satisfied with all I do to make the tour more unique, to make it different from the ordinary, to give it a personal thing, the Shannon touch. Miss Fellows, the Jip touch, the touch of a defrocked minister. Shannon, Miss Fellows, don't do what you're doing. He is on the verge of hysteria. He makes some incoherent sounds, gesticulates with clenched fists, then stumbles wildly across the veranda and leans panting for breath against a post. Don't break human pride. Voice from down the hill, a very Texan accent. Judy, they're taking our luggage. Miss Fellows shouting down the hill. Girls, don't let those boys touch your luggage. Don't let them bring your luggage in this dump. Girl's voice from below. Judy, we can't stop them. Maxine, those kids don't understand English. Miss Fellows, wild with rage. Will you please tell those boys to take the luggage back down to the bus? She calls to the party below again. Girls, hold on to your luggage. Don't let them take it away. We're going to drive back to Acapulco. You hear? Girl's voice. Judy, they want to swim first. Miss Fellows. I'll be right back. She rushes off, shouting at the Mexican boys. You, boys, muchachos, you carry that baggage back down. The voices continue, fading. Shannon moves brokenly across the veranda. Maxine shakes her head. Maxine. Shannon, give him the bus key and let him go. Shannon. And me do what? Maxine. Stay here. Shannon. In Fred's old bedroom? Yeah, in Fred's old bedroom. Maxine. You could do worse. Shannon. Could I? Well then, I'll do worse. I'll do worse. Maxine. Oh, now, baby. Shannon. If I could do worse. He grips the section of railing by the veranda steps and stares with wide, lost eyes. His chest heaves like a spent runner's, and he is bathed in sweat. Maxine. Give me that ignition key. I'll take it down to the driver while you bathe and rest and have a rum cocoa, baby. Shannon simply shakes his head slightly. Harsh bird cries sound in the rainforest. Voices are heard on the path. Hannah. No, you've lost your glasses. No, took 'em off. No sun. Hannah appears at the top of the path, pushing her grandfather Nono in a wheelchair. He is a very old man, but has a powerful voice for his age, and always seems to be shouting something of importance. Nono is a poet and a showman. There is a good kind of pride, and he has it, carrying it like a banner wherever he goes. He is immaculately dressed, a linen suit, white as his thick poet's hair, a black string tie, and he is holding a black cane with a gold crook. No. Which way is the sea? Hannah. Right down below the hill, No. He turns in the wheelchair and raises a hand to shield his eyes. We can't see it from here. The old man is deaf, and she shouts to make him hear. No. I can feel it and smell it. A murmur of wind sweeps through the rainforest. It's the cradle of life. He is shouting too. Life began in the sea. Maxine. These two with your party? Shannon. No. Maxine. They look like a pair of loonies. Shannon. Shut up. Shannon looks at Hannah and Nono steadily, with a relief of tension, almost like that of someone going under hypnosis. The old man still squints down the path, blindly, but Hannah is facing the veranda with a proud person's hope of acceptance when it is desperately needed. Hannah. How do you do? Maxine. Hello. Hannah. Have you ever tried pushing a gentleman in a wheelchair uphill through a rainforest? Maxine. Nope. And I wouldn't even try it downhill. Hannah. Well, now that we've made it, I don't regret the effort. What a view for a painter. She looks about her, panting, digging into her shoulder bag for a handkerchief, aware that her face is flushed and sweating. They told me in town that this was the ideal place for a painter, and they weren't exaggerating. Shannon. You've got a scratch on your forehead. Hannah. Oh, is that what I felt? Shannon. Better put iodine on it. Hannah. Yes, I'll attend to that one later. Thank you. Maxine. Anything I can do for you? Hannah. I'm looking for the manager of the hotel. Maxine. Me. Speaking. Hannah. Oh, you're the manager. Good. How do you do? I'm Hannah Jelks, Mrs. Maxine Falk. Maxine Falk. What can I do for you folks? Her tone indicates no desire to do anything for them. Hannah, turning quickly to her grandfather. No, the manager is a lady from the States. Nono lifts a branch of wild orchids from his lap ceremonially, with the instinctive gallantry of his kind. Nono, shouting, Give the lady these botanical curiosities you picked on the way up. Hannah, I believe they're wild orchids. Isn't that what they are? Shannon, Leila Tibicina. Hannah, oh. No. But tell her, Hannah, tell her to keep them in the icebox till after dark. They draw bees in the sun. He rubs a sting on his chin with a rueful chuckle. Maxine, are you all looking for rooms here? Hannah, yes, we are, but we've come without reservations. Maxine, well, honey, the Costa Verde is closed in September, except for a few special guests, so. Shannon, they're special guests, for God's sake. Maxine, I thought you said they didn't come with your party. Hannah, please let us be special guests. Maxine, watch out! Nono has started struggling out of the wheelchair. Shannon rushes over to keep him from falling. Hannah has started toward him too, then seeing that Shannon has caught him, she turns back to Maxine. Hannah, in 25 years of travel, this is the first time we've ever arrived at a place without advance reservations. Maxine, honey, that old man ought to be in a hospital. Hannah, oh, no. No, he just sprained his ankle a little in Texaco this morning. He just needs a good night's rest. He'll be on his feet tomorrow. His recuperative powers are absolutely amazing for someone who is 97 years young. Shannon, easy, Grandpa. Hang on. He is supporting the old man up to the veranda. 2 steps? 1, 2. Now you've made it, Grandpa. Nono keeps chuckling breathlessly as Shannon gets him onto the veranda and into a wicker rocker. Hannah, breaking in quickly. I can't tell you how much I appreciate your taking us in here now. It's providential. Maxine, well, I can't send that old man back down the hill right now, but like I told you, Costa Verde is practically closed in September. I just take in a few folks as a special accommodation, and we operate on a special basis this month. No, cutting in abruptly and loudly. Hannah, tell the lady that my perambulator is temporary. I will soon be ready to crawl and then to toddle, and before long I will be leaping around here like an old mountain goat. Haha. Hannah, yes, I explained that, grandfather. No, I don't like being on wheels. Hannah, yes, my grandfather feels that the decline of the Western world began with the invention of the wheel. She laughs heartily, but Maxine's look is unresponsive. No. And tell the manager, the lady, that I know some hotels don't want to take dogs, cats, or monkeys, and some don't even solicit the patronage of infants in their late 90s who arrive in perambulators with flowers instead of rattles. He chuckles with a sort of fearful, slightly mad quality. Hannah perhaps has the impulse to clap a hand over his mouth at this moment, but must stand there smiling and smiling and smiling. And a brandy flask instead of a teething ring. But tell her that these concessions to man's seventh age are only temporary. And Hannah, no, no, I told her the wheelchair's because of a sprained ankle, no, no. Shannon to himself. Fantastic. No, no. And after my siesta, I'll wheel it back down the hill. I'll kick it back down the hill right into the sea and tell her. Hannah. Yes? What? No, no. She has stopped smiling now. Her tone and her look are frankly desperate. What shall I tell her now, no, no? No, no. Tell her that if she'll forgive my disgraceful longevity and this temporary decrepitude, I will present her with the last signed copy, he means copy, of my first volume of verse, published in when, Hannah? Hannah, hopelessly. The day that President Ulysses S. Grant was inaugurated, no, no. No, no. Morning trumpet. Where is it? You have it. Give it to her right now. Hannah. Later. A little later. And she turns to Maxine and Shannon. My grandfather is the poet Jonathan Coffin. He is 97 years young and will be 98 years young the 5th of next month, October. Maxine. Old folks are remarkable. Yep. The office phone's ringing. Excuse me, I'll be right back. She goes around the veranda. No, no. Did I talk too much? Hannah, quietly to Shannon. I'm afraid that he did. I don't think she's going to take us. Shannon, she'll take you. Don't worry about it. Hannah, nobody would take us in town, and if we don't get in here, I would have to wheel him back down through the rainforest. And then what? Then where? There would just be the road and no direction to move in except out to sea. And I doubt that we could make it divide before us. Shannon, that won't be necessary. I have a little influence with the Patrona. Hannah, oh, then do use it, please. Her eyes said no in big blue capital letters. Shannon pours some water from a pitcher on the veranda and hands it to the old man. No, no. What is this, libation? Shannon, some ice water, Grandpa. Hannah, oh, that's kind of you. Thank you. I'd better give him a couple of salt tablets to wash down with it. Briskly, she removes a bottle from her shoulder bag. Won't you have some? I see you're perspiring too. You have to be careful not to become dehydrated in the hot seasons under the Tropic of Cancer. Shannon, pouring another glass of water. Are you a little financially dehydrated too? Hannah, that's right. Bone dry. And I think the Patrona suspects it. It's a logical assumption, since I pushed him up here myself, and the Patrona has the look of a very logical woman. I'm sure she knows that we couldn't afford to hire the taxi driver to help us up here. Maxine, calling from the back. Pancho? Hannah, a woman's practicality when she's managing something is harder than a man's for another woman to cope with. So if you have influence with her, please do use it. Please try to convince her that my grandfather will be on his feet tomorrow, if not tonight. And with any luck whatsoever, the money situation will be solved just as quickly. Oh, here she comes back. Do help us. Involuntarily, Hannah seizes hold of Shannon's wrist as Maxine stalks back onto the veranda, still shouting for Pancho. The Mexican boy reappears, sucking a juicy peeled mango, its juice running down his chin onto his throat. Maxine. Pancho, run down to the beach and tell Herr Fahrenkopf that the German embassy's waiting on the phone for him. Pancho stares at her blankly until she repeats the order in Spanish. Dile a Herr Fahrenkopf que la embajada alemana lo llama el teléfono. Corre, corre. Pancho starts indolently down the path, still sucking noiselessly on the mango. I said run! Corre, corre! He goes into a leisurely loping pace and disappears through the foliage. Hannah, what graceful people they are. Maxine, yeah, they're graceful like cats and just as dependable, too. Hannah, shall we, register now? Maxine, you all can register later, but I'll have to collect $6 from you first if you want to put your names in the pot for supper. That's how I've got to operate here out of season. Hannah, $6? Maxine, yeah, 3 each. In season, we operate on the continental plan, but out of season, like this, we change to the modified American plan. Hannah, oh, what is the modification of it? She gives Shannon a quick glance of appeal as she stalls for time, but his attention has turned inward as the bus horn blows down the hill. Maxine, just 2 meals are included instead of all 3. Hannah, moving closer to Shannon and raising her voice. Breakfast and dinner? Maxine, a continental breakfast and a cold lunch. Shannon, aside. Yeah, very cold. Cracked ice if you crack it yourself. Hannah, reflectively. Not dinner. Maxine, no, not dinner. Hannah, oh, I see. But we operate on a special basis ourselves. I'd better explain it to you. Maxine, how do you mean operate? On what basis? Hannah, here's our card. I think you may have heard of us. She presents the card to Maxine. We've had a good many write-ups. My grandfather is the oldest living and practicing poet, and he gives recitations. I paint watercolors, and I'm a quick sketch artist. We travel together. We pay our way as we go by my grandfather's recitations and the sale of my watercolors and quick character sketches in charcoal or pastel. Shannon to himself. I have fever. Hannah. I usually pass among the tables at lunch and dinner in a hotel. I wear an artist's smock, picturesquely dabbed with paint, wide Byronic collar, and flowing silk tie. I don't push myself on people. I just display my work and smile at them sweetly, and if they invite me to do so, sit down to make a quick character sketch in pastel or charcoal. If not, smile sweetly and go on. Shannon, what does Grandpa do? Hannah, we pass among the tables together slowly. I introduce him as the world's oldest and living and practicing poet. If invited, he gives a recitation of a poem. Unfortunately, all of his poems were written a long time ago. But do you know he has started a new poem? For the first time in 20 years, he started another poem. Shannon, hasn't finished it yet? Hannah, he still has inspiration, but his power of concentration has weakened a little, of course. Maxine, right now he's not concentrating. Shannon, Grandpa's catching 40 weeks. Grandpa, let's hit the sack. Maxine, now wait a minute. I'm going to call a taxi for these folks to take them back to town. Hannah, please don't do that. We tried every hotel in town and they wouldn't take us. I'm afraid I have to place myself at your mercy. With infinite gentleness, Shannon has roused the old man and is leading him into one of the cubicles back of the veranda. Distant cries of bathers are heard from the beach. The afternoon light is fading very fast now as the sun has dropped behind an island hilltop out to sea. Maxine, looks like you're in for the one night. Just one. Hannah, thank you. Maxine, the old man's in number 4. You take 3. Where's your luggage? No luggage? Hannah, I hid it behind some palmettos at the foot of the path. Shannon, shouting to Pancho, bring up our luggage. Tu flojo. Las maletas. Las paletas. Vamos. The Mexican boys rush down the path. Maxine, honey, would you cash a post-dated check for me? Maxine, shrewdly. Yeah, mañana, maybe. Shannon, thanks. Generosity is the cornerstone of your nature. Maxine utters her one-note bark of a laugh as she marches around the corner of the veranda. Hannah. I'm dreadfully afraid my grandfather had a slight stroke in those high passes through the Sierras. She says this with the coolness of someone saying that it may rain before nightfall. An instant later, a long, long sigh of wind sweeps the hillside. The bathers are heard shouting below. Shannon. Very old people get these little cerebral accidents, as they call them. They're not regular strokes, they're just little cerebral incidents. The symptoms clear up so quickly that sometimes the old people don't even know they've had them. They exchange this quiet talk without looking at each other. The Mexican boys crash back through the bushes at the top of the path, bearing some pieces of ancient luggage fantastically plastered with hotel and travel stickers indicating a vast range of wandering. The boys deposit the luggage near the steps. Shannon, how many times have you been around the world? Hannah, almost as many times as the world's been around the sun, and I feel as if I'd gone the whole way on foot. Shannon, picking up her luggage. What's your cell number? Hannah, smiling faintly. I believe she said it was cell number 3. Shannon, she probably gave you the one with the leaky roof. He carries the bags into the cubicle. Maxine is visible to the audience only as she appears outside the door to her office on the wing of the veranda. But you won't find out till it rains, and then it'll be too late to do much about it but swim out of it. Hannah laughs wanly. Her fatigue is now very plain. Shannon comes back out with her luggage. Yup, she gave you the one with the leaky roof, so you take mine and... Hannah. Oh, no, 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 Mr. Shannon. I'll find a dry spot if it rains. Maxine from around the corner of the veranda. Shannon! A bit of pantomime occurs between Hannah and Shannon. He wants to put her luggage in cubicle number 5. She catches hold of his arm, indicating by gesture toward the back of it that it is necessary to avoid displeasing the proprietor. Maxine shouts his name louder. Shannon surrenders to Hannah's pleading and puts her luggage back in the leaky cubicle number 3. Hannah. Thank you so much, Mr. Shannon. She disappears behind the mosquito netting. Maxine advances to the veranda angle as Shannon starts toward his own cubicle. Maxine mimicking Hannah's voice. Thank you so much, Mr. Shannon. Shannon. Don't be bitchy. Some people say thank you sincerely. He goes past her and down the steps from the end of the veranda. I'm going for a swim now. Maxine. The water's blood temperature this time of day. Shannon. Yeah, well, I have a fever, so it'll seem cooler to me. He crosses rapidly to the jungle path leading to the beach. Maxine following him. Wait for me, She means she will go down with him, but he ignores her call and disappears into the foliage. Maxine shrugs angrily and goes back onto the veranda. She faces out, gripping the railing tightly and glaringly into the blaze of the sunset, as if it were a personal enemy. Then the ocean breathes a long, cooling breath up the hill as Nano's voice is heard from the cubicle. Nano, no. How calmly does the orange branch observe the sky begin to blanch, without a cry, without a prayer, with no expression of despair. And from a beach cantina in the distance, a marimba band is heard playing a popular song of that summer of 1940, Palabras de Mujer, which means words of women. Slow dim out and slow curtain.